evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, February 21st, 2023, and welcome to the Wayne Township Trustees meeting. And can I roll call, please?
Call roll, Mr. Pack.
Here.
Ms. Colvin.
Here.
Mr. Jacobs.
Here.
All present and accounted for.
All right, please join me in saying the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could I have I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the last meeting, which was February 7th.
I will second that.
All those in favor, say by saying aye.
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 Thank you.
Anybody have any additions, removals, adjustments to them?
I have none. I have none.
All right. I assume everybody signed in back there. I think I saw most people do it, so welcome. And Mr. Rob Tuttle is here to discuss Convention of States, the other side, as we call it. So you can come up and.
First?
Yeah, you are the only one. So you're first, and then we do citizens' comments after that. So you have 15 minutes.
Thank you. Very much.
Okay, well, I appreciate very much the opportunity to be here. It's a subject near and dear to my heart, as you might imagine, as it is for many of those who are here on both sides of the issue tonight. I think what I want to point out is there's a legitimate question about whether Convention of States is a good idea or not. That's the first thing I want to point out. It's not, I think both sides have good intentions for the most part. And we were talking outside, that we both see that there's a big problem, and we want to find out the best way to get to the solution. And we differ on what that path is. But I think you're going to see that there are significant and serious issues to concerns about going down the Convention of States route. And that's what I want to point out. There are legitimate concerns that we should take into consideration before we go headlong into that. Now, I don't have enough time to go into depth on a lot of the stuff, so I don't know, apparently there's a 30-minute limit and you may not have time to ask questions. Normally I encourage questions about anything that I talk about. Question me, challenge me on any of the material that I present. So if you get a chance, maybe at the end, that is very much welcome for my part. So I believe, thank you guys. I believe, as I think pretty much everybody in this room, that the federal government is just totally out of control. And I think the Convention of States movement sprung out of frustration, right? That we can't get Congress to do what we want them to do. The things that are before us, the three things that they're asking about are very serious. We need action, and Congress is not taking action. So they're seeing that there's an opportunity to use something else in the Constitution in Article 5 to bypass the Congress and let the states push these issues directly. Well, so we all agree of all of that. And the question again is, what's the best way to get there? The COS organization and its proponents say we need to hold a Convention of States, which, by the way, is not a new term. Convention of States was used as terminology back in the time of the original convention. And in fact, the state of Connecticut, in its instructions to the delegates that it sent to the convention, called it a Convention of States. So don't let anybody tell you that a Convention of States is different than a constitutional convention, because those words were similar or synonyms back at that time, and they still mean the same thing today, ultimately. So what is a Convention of States? I think you guys have heard about this already, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time. This is just kind of a quick summary, but two ways to get amendments to the Constitution. First one is if 2/3 of both houses of Congress pass an amendment, and then it will be sent to the states for ratification, where 3/4 of the states have to ratify. The other way is for 2/3 of the states, 34, can request or call petition Congress to call a convention. Most scholars say if they're petitioned by 34, they got to call it, right? So no question that Congress would call a convention if 34 states asked for the same topics or agenda for such a convention. Now, what's interesting is that, oh, I'm sorry, the other thing is the three major things that they're looking for: term limits for federal officials, restraints to government spending, which we all think that that's out of control. Most people say a balanced budget amendment is a good way to hit that. And the third one is additional restraints to rein in government overreach. Now, that's pretty broad, but again, I think everybody in this room agrees that that's an issue. Congress is spending money they shouldn't be spending. And they're doing things that we don't approve of, the states don't approve of, and they're diminishing the states for the last several decades. So something definitely needs to be done. So I would ask, if you were going to limit the federal government in what they can spend money on, how would you do that? If you were gonna make an amendment, or if you were gonna create a new constitution even, and how would you limit the government? What's the best way to limit the federal government and what they can spend money on? And I would suggest that there's no way to list all of the things that Congress cannot spend money on. So the best way to do it is probably to list only the things that Congress is allowed to spend money on, and explicitly say they're not allowed to spend money on anything else, right? Then they have a finite list of what is known as enumerated powers in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution that does exactly that. So the Constitution says, here are the 18 things, Article 1, Section 8, clauses 1 through 18. These are the things that Congress is allowed to spend money on, and if it's not on that list, they can't spend it. And you know, there's even a rule in the US House of Representatives that most people don't know about. It's Rule 12, Clause 7C. And I verified this with a member of Congress. It's been there since 2011. And it requires anybody who introduces a new bill into the House, the US House of Representatives, to sign a constitutional authority statement that specifically points to the exact place in the Constitution that allows them to propose that bill. And by the founders and by the Constitution, it's got to be on that list of 18 in Article 1, Section 8. Do they use the constitutional authority statement? No. Most bills that are introduced in Congress don't even include one. And of the ones that do include it, they're extremely general and nobody pressures them on it. Nobody says, well, wait a minute, where is that exactly, right? Nobody challenges them on it. So they just spend willy-nilly. The point is, those enumerated powers are already in the Constitution, and they're violating those powers today. So I would say, and we had this discussion out in the hallway as well, rather than try to throw new amendments or laws at them that they may or may not adhere to, why not challenge them and hold them accountable to what the Constitution already says? And there are ways to do that that unfortunately I don't have time to talk about today, but it's under the general topic of nullification. Now, people say, nullification, that doesn't work. Love to come back and talk about the hundreds of times across the United States that nullification is working. And in fact, look up HB 51, which is a new bill that's been introduced into the Ohio House. You can go to legislature.ohio.gov and look for HB 51. That is an excellent example of nullification, where we're saying if the federal government enacts any firearm-related controls, or limits firearm possession or use in any way, infringes on the Second Amendment, not only will Ohio not enforce it, but in the state of Ohio, those laws are null and void. That's an excellent example of nullification. It's been used on other topics, but that's just a good one that is in the Ohio House now. So next one, Gus, thanks. So let's assume for a second that Congress would follow any new amendments that came out, and they may. Right? It depends on what the amendments are. But in 250 years, 33 amendments have been sent to the states for ratification. 27 have been ratified, and we have 27 amendments to the Constitution. Now, there have been hundreds of applications for Convention of State articles over the years, and only these 27 have been passed into law. Now, why haven't any of those Convention of States or Convention, Article 5 Convention applications made it to a vote? Why hasn't there been a convention in 250 years? And the reason for that that is, the states recognize that there are too big a risk to do that, to have another convention. And I'm gonna talk about why. But there's two assumptions that the COS folks make that I will show you are not necessarily good assumptions. And we can argue them, we can debate them, and I'm happy to do that. But these two things would indicate that there's tremendous risk. First thing they say is, the states can control a convention without congressional interference. 34 states call for a convention, Congress will take whatever they ask for and call for a convention of the states. And then the states will do everything, right? They'll select their delegates, they'll do all that stuff, they'll send their delegates in, they'll discuss the thing, they'll come up with amendments, and then they'll throw the amendments back out to the states for ratification, and 3/4 have to ratify. Not necessarily true, and I'm gonna talk about why not. The other thing is, can states control the discussion of what's actually discussed, what's on the agenda in the convention itself? Convention of States folks say, oh, don't worry, you know, we've only got these 3 things, and so they're gonna have to stick to those 3 things and they can't do anything else, right? That's the assumption they're making. Unfortunately, the Constitution provides no guidance in Article 5 about any of those things, about any of the rules or procedures or anything. Only that the Congress will call a convention will take place, and then Congress will send it back out to the states for ratification. Okay, that's all it says. It doesn't say anything about rules or procedures or anything. So who's gonna decide the rules and procedures? Next slide, please. So, they're not in Article 5, and so where are those rules and procedures going to be determined? Who's gonna determine them? And COS has their assumptions. I would suggest that those assumptions aren't necessarily rock solid, at least. And so let's look at the next slide. So, COS supporters will tell you that, you know, no problem. Article 1, Section 10, well, the point here is that although Article 5 doesn't say anything about how a convention will be run, there are other places in the Constitution that help us understand how that will happen. One of them is Article 1, Section 10, which says that Congress has to approve any compact or agreement between states. Now, the COS folks on their website talk about 42 multi-state conventions that have happened in the past, and none of them went rogue. They all did what they were supposed to do, no problem. Don't let them tell you that those 42 conventions that had been run had anything to do with what we're talking about today. I've researched all 42. And for example, 31 out of those 42 of those multi-state conventions that they say are good examples that, you know, nothing bad's gonna happen, happened before we even had a ratified constitution. So at that point, we had sovereign states that were colonies of England, and during that period of time before the Constitution, that obviously has nothing to do with the situation we're in today. Of the remaining 11, and I don't have time to go into all the detail, but ask me, and I'll go into the detail about those other 9, or other 11. They were typically 3 or 4 states getting together to talk about a specific thing. So for example, they would get together and talk about how are we gonna manage the river basin that feeds the rivers that come to our 3 states? Who's gonna do that? They had a convention, and they got together, they asked Congress for permission first, they had a convention, they discussed it, they agreed on it, and they sent it back to Congress for their approval, okay? But obviously, something like that has nothing to do with calling a convention for the amendment of the United States Constitution. Very, very different, and I'd be happy to expound on that further if necessary. So, the other thing is, Congressional Research Service is a federal agency that Congress depends on to do research about laws and legal matters in the Constitution. And so they give them things to research and analyze and come back with an answer so Congress knows what they can and cannot do. The Congressional Research Service in 2014 prepared a report for Congress specifically on how a convention of states or an Article 5 convention would work. And that report was updated in both 2016 and 17. That research report makes it very clear that Congress believes they have extensive power to determine the rules and procedures for a constitutional convention. So at the very least, they say we can determine all kinds of rules for selection of delegates, voting procedures, ratification procedures, judicial review, and in fact, to prove the point, since 1968, more than 50 laws have been proposed in the United States Congress to do exactly that. Now, some of them passed one house, none of them passed both houses. It wasn't critical at the time. But the point is, Congress believes that they have the right to tell the states how a convention would be run. So at the very least, there's going to be major contention between Congress and the states. It's not a done deal. Who's going to control all of those things? And the types of things, again, size and term of the convention, delegate qualifications and how the delegates are selected and apportioned, whether it would be a popular vote for delegates or appointment. And please don't let COS just tell you and take it for granted that it's going to be one state, one vote. Because although that's the way it was in the Constitutional Convention of 1787, things have changed a great deal since our Constitution was implemented. And think about how they've even taken away, through the 17th Amendment, they took away the senators representing the states. Originally, the 2 senators represented states. Okay. So, one state, one vote. I think California and the top 10 states are going to have something to say about that because they have the majority of the population. And they're not going to want to just have one vote just like Montana does or New Hampshire does. Okay, so next slide, please, Gus. We'll just go right ahead. So, again, not enough time to go into detail, but love to answer questions if I have a chance. Don't let the convention states folks tell you that that the instructions that they provide will restrict them in any way. It turns out, they'll say that the states submitted instructions to their delegates that gave them free rein. And so really, that call by Congress that said it was limited to the sole and restricted purpose of amending the Articles of Confederation, that's what Congress call said. They'll say, well, that didn't mean anything. The states gave their delegates instructions. Well, I've also researched and have copies of all 13 of those instructions from the 13 states. 12 of them actually were instructions, one of them Rhode Island didn't attend. And 10 out of those 12 used the words in the instruction that they will, that for the purpose of revising the federal constitution, and the federal constitution is capitalized, so it's a proper name. So bottom line, okay, so bottom line, yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. So bottom line, you know, I think it's gonna boil down to who understands the implications of what's being asked, how serious the risk is, which is tremendously serious, obviously, if they can change the Constitution, and do we want to take the risk? So that's the big question, do we want to take the risk? And hopefully I've showed you at least that there's going to be a battle on some things, and it's not clear cut who's going to control such a convention. So with respect for time, yeah, I would like you to take a look at this last slide.
Yeah, we'll have Gus send it to us after here. Thank you very much.
All right,
It's
thank
good to hear another side.
No time for questions or.
Yeah, we'll open it up to citizens' comments now, and it's like just 3 minutes per person. We only have a 30-minute max for everybody.
Gotcha. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Mr.
Thank
Tuttle?
you.
Yes.
Good information.
Yes. Okay. Yep. State your name and address, please.
My name is Roger Gibb. I live in Mason, Ohio, 5155 Farm Ridge Way. Thanks for giving me 3 minutes to talk. So tonight you've heard from someone who opposes the Convention of States organization and what we're trying to accomplish. We want to amend the Constitution, as he said, in 3 areas. First, fiscal responsibility for the federal government. Second, term limits for Congress and federal officials. And third, to limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government. Now, you've heard some statements this evening to suggest that the process by which states can propose amendments to the Constitution is somehow dangerous. This claim is not new. It started in the early 1950s, and it was started by progressive legislators, judges, and university professors. Okay? They did this because starting in the early 1950s, there were movements by the states to amend the Constitution on really these same topics, term limits and a balanced budget amendment. Because these progressive activists favored big government, they wanted to stop the states in their attempt to amend the Constitution. And so what they did is they embarked on a disinformation campaign. And among other things, they claimed that the states might radically rewrite the Constitution, that the states could repeal the Bill of Rights. All the claims that this individual stated before, they are decades old. They have been around since as far back as the early 1950s. There's nothing new in what he just said, nothing. All of the claims made by progressive activists are based on naked assertions, not hard evidence. Unfortunately, their claims went more or less unopposed until the start of this century. So 21st century constitutional scholars, including Robert Nadelson and Michael Ferris, have together published extensively on amending the Constitution and how the process works. And all of the 20th century fear-mongering claims, including everything that you've heard tonight, they have all been debunked in peer-reviewed journal articles that are published in well-respected legal journals over the past 23 years. Now, when I was here 2 weeks ago, I brought in a stack of these journal articles. I brought in a couple books too. All of these claims are debunked in that scholarly literature. Also, the Wisconsin Grandsons of Liberty prepared an extensive summary of this 21st century literature that answers 20 commonly asked questions about the Constitution. And their summary, again, debunks all of these claims. And I have a copy of that document that I can present to each of you. And if you have any question that this document doesn't answer, I'm happy to answer them for you to the best of my ability. Now, in closing, I would just like to share with you a quote. This is attributed to Albert Einstein. I share this with you because it has changed my life for the better. The world is a dangerous place to live, not because of the people who are evil, but because of the good people who don't do anything about it. So in other words, for our application, the American people have for too long sat by and allowed their rights to be taken from them, and we can't let that continue. And I submit to you that collectively we need to take more responsibility to take back our rights that have been taken from us from our government. I submit that the Wayne Township trustees can take action in a constructive way by passing a resolution in support of amending the Constitution to rein in our federal government. In Waynesville, there are 204 people. 10 seconds. There's 204 people in Waynesville who have signed the petition for Convention of States. In House District 55, there's over 1,600, and in Ohio, there's over 109,000. And I invite you to consider passing a resolution in support of saving our country. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just give these?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I have one copy for each.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think that's in the next year.
Somebody's on the way.
Thank you.
Get two people through.
Sorry.
Ladies
Would you like
first.
to go first?
No, ladies first.
Thank you. I appreciate you letting me switch times with Rob, so I've got the 3 minutes to get the bell.
Yeah, I know.
I thought I would just share just some, of course, things that we say are similar. And first of all, I thought I would read Article 5 in a modern version. This side is the way it's written in our Constitution. This is to people today who don't use 5 yards of sentences, in one sentence. So let me just read that. And it says, and you can check it in the original, amendments to the Constitution may be proposed in 2 ways. I'll skip the first way because the second way is what we're talking about. The second way is for the legislators of 2/3 of the states and then request it, and then Congress must call a convention for proposing amendments. It is Congress who calls the convention. The states do not have the authority to do that. They can only request that Congress doesn't apply for Congress to do it. States have no power once a convention is called. The power belongs to Congress, who will make the rules. It will be a federal convention designed to propose amendments to a federal document, our U.S. Constitution. I'm going to invite some people to speak for me from the past. Phyllis Schlafly. Phyllis Schlafly was a fighter for the Constitution. She was a wonderful conservative hero. In 2016, she said, Article 5 of the Constitution has only 22 words about a convention for proposing amendments. But the most important is the word call, C-A-L-L. Since only Congress can call the convention, it means that states have no control over who can be a delegate, who makes the rules, who sets the agenda, and who wields the gavel. The cost lobby group says that the convention will be limited. Well, there's nothing in Article 5 that says it's limited. The only thing it says about amendments that would be presented are that it's plural amendments, so any amendments can be put forth, and not just from conservative, God-fearing Republicans. It can be from very different people of a whole different mindset. People like Hillary Clinton, who said she's for Citizens United. Is that 3 minutes up already?
Yes, you're fast.
Well, I do have a copy of,
We're gonna have
thank you for
Chris
the
talk
time,
about this. Sorry, he was
of
saying.
the other constitutions that are being proposed. So if anybody would like to see them, one's by the Communist Party USA.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Barbara. Hi, Chris.
I have no remarks written or prepared other than to speak as a,
Amen.
sorry, Christopher Epic, 2940 North Waynesville Road.
Great.
So, I am a member of COAST. I'm also just kind of surprised there are people that claim to be as upset as I am with our federal government working this hard to try and block a solution. And they used a lot of pieces of paper talking about, well, this word has this meaning, and this word has this meaning. So somehow when the state passes a resolution calling for this, apparently now the words that the state's gonna mean won't have meaning, but the words they're saying do. I'm losing a little bit of that argument, because words have meaning. We do agree that our government isn't following them, but you've offered no solutions. Trying to get a nullification is great, keep going, I'll support that too. But what we have are problems much more serious than that. And so, if we're not gonna stand up as citizens, take it upon our shoulders to do something. I'm not afraid of what's gonna happen in a convention. I'm afraid of what happens if we don't have it. We're turning this country to my grandkids in an utter disaster. I can't sit by and let that happen. And hopefully, you do not either. Thank you.
It's good to see we have a lot in common, so, which is good.
Well, my name is Deborah Parker. I live at 8947 Evan Court in Springfield. There's two things that I want to say. That once the convention is called, after Congress decides who the delegates are going to be, and who knows who those delegates are going to be, as Barbara said. Once that convention is called, there is no authority that can contradict anything they do. Whatever they do is what happens. And there's nobody that can come behind them and say, no, 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 we don't want this. They have full power to amend the Constitution, change it, whatever they want to do with it. And another item that I wanted to address is they go, well, usually the Convention of the States say, well, we have this faithful delegate thing, and if they're not, if the people that we send to the Constitution, which they really won't be sending, it's going to be Congress doing these delegates, then we'll just call them home. But you know, in the first when our first Constitution was written, they decided to do it in secret. So nobody's going to know who said what in that Constitution. So how are we going to call people home when we don't know who said what? This is a very dangerous thing. There are better ways to curb our government. We have the traditional method of amendments, and we have nullification, which we have to really step up and do more of. And that's all I'm going to say.
Okay, thank you very much.
John Burkhardt, 1542 Lamont Boulevard, Clear Creek Township. And we agree, we do agree. My grandkids, we have the same fears. Just like the people in cost have really good reasons for pushing this. There's individuals who would love to amend the Constitution and eliminate the Electoral College. Well, in my opinion, that would destroy our country. Because it would give power to just all of our big states and our populations. The last time this was done, it was done in secret, and they eliminated the Articles of Confederation and created the Constitution. they eliminated the entire thing. And it was said they were in secret because they vowed secrecy until the last one died to say exactly what happened, so that nobody could be called to the carpet on this. I think we need to just elect people who will do the right thing, and that's the action we should take.
Thank you.
Yes, very good.
We agree on change.
Doing good over cases.
Yeah, it's good credit, man.
So, before I even do anything, I'm obviously not from the town, as you know. It's not just Republicans that do the voting, that would be at the convention.
State
Hillary Clinton would be
Name,
welcome.
name and address, yeah, sorry.
Hillary Clinton would be welcome to
You're not
have her
Hillary
say-
Clinton, so what's your?
Right, so my name is Jim Lewis, I'm not Hillary Clinton.
Okay.
And I am from Batavia, Ohio.
Okay.
I am here before this deliberate body in defense of invoking Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution to validate its necessity to avoid the accelerated demise of this nation as an overreach of our tyrannical government. It's because of the sacrifices that our founding fathers made that I can stand here before you and say these words without the risk of going to prison at minimum and going to death and be put to death at worst. Okay? The founding fathers knew many things. 28 principles they put into when they did the Constitution. I'm going to go over them quick. 3. Number 1 responsibility of government, any government, regardless of its size, is to defend the inalienable rights of the people of which they represent. That's their number 1 goal, first and foremost. Madison was told by Jefferson that a Bill of Rights is what the people are entitled to against every government, not just on every government on earth. That's why the Anti-Federalists required a promise to have a Bill of Rights put to the Constitution after it was ratified. It's the only reason it got ratified. Secondly, and this goes to you all, the keystone to preserving human freedom our founding fathers knew, strong local government, period. We must keep the power base close to the people. The reason that they wrote 2 amendments, 9th and 10th Amendment, stating just this fact. That's how important they felt it was. Madison said in his 45th Federalist, amongst all of the other things he said, but as it relates to states and you, those state powers will extend to all the objects which the ordinary course of affairs concern the lives, liberties, and properties of the people. You 3, in this township trustee, you are the objects to which Madison was speaking. You are our defense against the state, and then the defense against the federal. Thirdly, the Constitution was not perfect. It is perfectible through Article 5. We're not going to go over all the arguments you've already heard, no matter how wrong they are. The Constitution is not self-enforcing, meaning it cannot protect itself. So this is the so what. This is why all of this matters. Each department of government, including our smallest governments, have a responsibility to rise up and protect its own prerogatives by exercising the checks and balances provided in the Constitution, whether it be federal or state. More importantly, we, the people, have a responsibility to exercise our inalienable rights granted to us as well. And we need to make our voices heard as we are now, so that we can elect people who will stay within the constitutional boundaries. That is not happening now, and you all know that as well as I. Do we want what's going on for our posterity? Of course not. I don't have kids, it doesn't matter to me. In a big sense of the word, it does because you all have kids. The founders gave us the knowledge and the tools to correct the current destructive course that we're on. Article 5 is one of those things. And George Washington said in his farewell address, if, in the opinion of the people, the distribution or modification of the constitutional powers be in any particular wrong, let it be corrected by an amendment in the way in which the Constitution designates. Article 5 designates that. Our founders were brilliant. The Leviathan we have allowed our federal government to become has demonstrated repeatedly it will never limit its own powers. We, the people in local government, must act swiftly, decisively, and demand of Columbus they approve the Convention of States resolutions currently before them. What protected freedom from Washington et al. Will protect us as well, but only if we stand up and declare our liberty, because it is our republic, but we must choose to keep it. That's all I have to say. Thank you for the time.
Anybody else? One more, maybe 2 more.
Hi, Kim Schneider. You want my street address or just one yourself?
Yes, yeah.
New Burlington.
Okay.
So I'm not as eloquent as anybody in this room probably, And this whole being interested in all this is relatively new to me, but over the last 3 years, it's become quite obvious that our government and our world is kind of out of control. And I have watched how people like to spin and change definitions of words and presentations of things. What I hear from both sides is that we're all very concerned about our nation, and that's great. I am curious as to how much study you guys have done about the Constitution, because I've taken some classes and spent a lot of hours, and it's still a lot to consume. So to have 15 minutes hearing one side and 15 minutes hearing another side and trying to process all this is completely unrealistic. So I'm hoping that you're going to do some research on your own, or that this will be an ongoing discussion of this. The gentleman who just spoke said lots of things that I totally agree with about the importance of our local government. My huge concern with this convention is that agreeing to have a convention gives all the power to the Congress, who has proven that they are not trustworthy because they're letting us down currently.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Tony Kruger. I'm with the Convention of States. I'm the legislative liaison with them and have been with the movement for the last 7 or 8 years. There's been many things that have been said, a lot of which I disagree with and I think are inaccurate. But there's a couple of things that about the Convention of States that I think are very simple to understand and are well worth thinking about. First of all, the Convention of the States is a convention of the states. It's not a convention of the people, and it's not a convention of the federal government. The states, when we were formed, were sovereign and still keep residual sovereignty. If you really look at and study Article 5, you realize that the state legislatures, believe it or not, they own the Constitution. Without them, nothing about the Constitution gets amended. Okay, so if you break the Article 5 into 2 sections, the first section being what is called the proposal phase. Congress can propose amendments. The states can apply, give application to the federal government to have a convention. Now, why is that? It's a little tedious to do that. The question before was, there's been hundreds and hundreds of applications. Why haven't we had one? Simple. We can't and have not been able to get 2/3 of the states to agree on the subject matter. Once we get 34 states to agree to the subject matter, Congress will be forced to call a convention. Now, what's in a call? They will be telling us where it's to be held, when it's to be held, and the content. Well, the content is the application itself. 34 states have agreed on a specific subject matter. And when they get to the convention it will be run by the people, the delegates that have been selected by their states. That's the way all convention of states have always been run. They've
Sorry.
had 40 of them,
Whatever your
they've
time
all
limit.
been successful. There's never been a runaway.
Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate your comments. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We've had 3 minutes, I'm sorry. Okay.
Just get wraps up.
All right, is there anybody else? Because we're about out of our 30-minute thing, so we're gonna, I think, go to our regular meeting now. But I really appreciate everybody's both sides of, you know, it's good to see the commonality and a few differences, but, you know, something, gives us something to think about. All right, we're gonna get into the road tomorrow. Yeah, anybody, if you don't wanna stay for the entire meeting, you don't have to, because now we're gonna get into our normal business. So, Mr. Camry.
Good evening,
Road
board.
Department, good evening. Thanks for
Do they have
sticking with us.
No trouble. Let's see, I'm gonna stand with my report as I submitted it. Everybody got the mileage certification?
Yes.
That's all signed?
Yes, signed.
Just signed up.
Good, 'cause we gotta get that down by tomorrow. I think everything, I'm sure Stacy's got more about the recycle rally in her report, but as far as I know, we've been working together and it's full steam ahead. Just kind of let the things roll along.
I've got one question for you.
Okay?
So they're boarding all the conduit,
Right.
the fibers coming in and stuff like that. Have you talked about any kind of, I know most of the restoration looks pretty good so far. Are they going to go back with any seed at all?
I haven't talked to anybody about that.
Okay.
You know,
Right now, it's still cold, so I wouldn't expect that.
yeah,
I didn't know if that was something they're going to look at later on or not.
you know, as far as, you know, alongside the road, you know, most of that, anything that's been disturbed, you know, this cold weather, that grass, those rhizomes are still there, and there's a, once the warm, well, can't really say the warm weather, but once spring, real spring actually happens, I would imagine that, you know, the grass will come back, but, you know, we'll keep it around. Yeah, them guys are moving on, they're,
Yeah, they said they're going to power up Middletown Road to down Corwin, up Garden, up Elman and stuff like that. So that's pretty.
right, they've been
A
moving
lot of
right
work.
along. I was actually surprised to see them actually pulling wire through the conduit.
Yeah.
But they're doing the whole,
He said that crew came up from South Carolina.
pardon me?
He said that crew came from South Carolina up to here
Okay,
to work in this area.
Right.
So
cool, yeah, I mean, everything that they're doing, you know, looks good to me. I mean, I was a little concerned with some of the ditch reshaping going down Guard Hill, because that's really, really rocky. But, you know, as it resettles and time, and, you know, we've gotten away from where they disturbed it, it's settling back in, so I'm not too concerned as of right now. So,
be concerned with them going directly. They did 9 degrees on the road on Elman Road as you're going down just south of my house from one pole to the next. I didn't know if you saw that or not.
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Looks like they've been cleaning up a good bit. I mean, they're still working out your way.
Yeah.
But Middletown East, looks like, I mean, they're cleaning up and bugging out, or at least moving on, so.
They just need to jump the river.
I don't know whether they gained the proper committage to go under the river yet.
I know, but the unit that they used to bore underneath the river was a much bigger unit than what they have on property.
Right.
It is a big unit going down there.
Yeah, because they gotta go way deep.
Yeah,
Below,
you have to.
below the bottom of the river, so. That's all I have.
All right.
I mean, unless you guys have anything you need to pass along to me.
Thank you.
All right, very good, thank you. You're welcome.
All right, Chief Shear, our fire department report.
Good evening. I don't have really much to update. A lot of grant stuff is due by the end of March. Pharmacy license is due by the end of March also. Talked to Seagrave's rep, and he told me he's not allowed to talk to me because it's all in the attorney's hands.
Oh,
So
lovely.
he would not even give me no information, wouldn't talk to me, so
Okay,
that's what I think Gus has got information on that, and I'll be going with my grandson's Make-A-Wish cruise.
well, have a great time. Yes,
That's really all I
lots of
have.
memories. All right, thank you, Chief Shear.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, Stacy Loving, our zoning department report.
The recycle rally is kind of full steam ahead. We have a commitment for the paper shredding, we're going to take back the large objects and metals. done, we're gonna be removing Freon, and all the costs of removing Freon, will be donated to the food pantry. So that should be well underway now for April 29th. Sent out the magazine notices to advertisers and community partners this week. The ads are starting to come in, so send forth your articles. I'm ready for some content. Department heads and trustees, whoever is willing to write some articles.
Pressure's on.
Pressure's on.
Pressure's on. The clock is ticking.
When do you need that by? Yesterday. I'm trying
Next,
to get basketball done.
I think, March 4th, 5th in there, I gave them maybe a few more days, just have reserved your spot. We'll find something. All right, as far as the BZA, we've had an active, so, couple of months here, so, the web conditional use site plan was denied last week. We've got another variance next month. The zoning commission's very busy as well, so I've submitted the administrative zoning amendments that we discussed last time. So at the next meeting of the zoning commission, if everything is in order, they'll initiate the amendments, and the dates that you see up there will be the dates for the next meetings. If we do not get to a point to initiate the amendments, that calendar will change for the next 3 meetings that are listed.
Okay.
I have a rezoning on State Route 73 that'll be heard on the 2nd of March as well. And then that will come to you the following week for rezoning and a site plan.
Is that office building?
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Edwards, our administrator's report, please.
Okay, thank you, board. Give my bi-weekly winter weather update. Winter weather has been nice as far as snow and ice, but it was not kind to us on February 9th when we had high winds and gusts over 50 miles an hour. The road department cold storage barn did receive some minor shingle damage, and that claim has been investigated through PERSO, our property and casualty insurance company. And they did get back with us today, I believe, and appears that probably is going to be covered with $1,000 deductible. So we will get the replacement taken care of on that. County Engineer's Office has called, and at the State Route 73 bridge over Corwin Road, the Water and Sewer Department is relocating a 10-inch force main sewer, and they needed to open cut Corwin Road when they do that project. So it was in their packet of where that's going to be rerouted to, and we did give approval for an open cut to expedite that. With that being said, I found out today that they rejected all bids that first went out on the first round, and so they're rebidding that portion of that project. So just to kind of give you an update. Next item, Seagrave Fire Apparatus. I think I had in your packet a copy. Did I give you guys a copy of the letter?
I can't remember.
Or did I send it separately to the trustees?
You sent it separately.
Okay. So given the receipt of the letter that was sent by our legal counsel to Seagraves, and have not heard anything back from our attorney, so as soon as I do, I will let you know.
Do you think they're going to respond back to it?
I would expect so. I think the way it's worded, they would. If not, I'll have them follow up. And I think, being 750 days into the contract and not having any guidance, then I would think that they should at least respond. So I will have Orange County Prosecutor's Office, do that if we don't hear back probably next week or whatever. Before next meeting, I'll have them send an email or update to find out if they have heard it.
Does the representative know you'll be off?
Say what?
Does the representative know that you'll be off, so in case they try to call you about something?
He won't.
He's not gonna call me.
Yeah,
He said,
He's not
hands
gonna
for the
call you,
attorneys.
okay, all right.
Yeah, it's
He said it's between the Seagraves attorney and our attorney.
All right,
So he said he will not even talk to me.
okay. Because you don't need to talk to.
Great.
you.
Way to blow that friendship, you know?
Yeah.
It's a way to blow that friendship.
That's what money does.
How about that money that happens everything?
Massey Township, I did, just to follow up on that, I've got a packet in there about 5 different squads that I researched and what they sold for. And there's actually been a couple of them that since the last meeting have sold, you know, more around the $20,000 to $30,000. And there was actually one that was at $60,000, but it was a later model. And some of them had a lot more mileage than ours and so forth. I sent an email out to all the 3 of their trustees and to their fiscal officer and heard back from the fiscal officer, but I haven't heard back from the trustees. So that might be a topic, and now we're meeting once a month, so they may meet next month and have some open dialogue on it. Did talk to Major Steve Aerosmith from Warren County Drug Task Force, and he said yes, he would more than be happy to come out. He's just got to look at his schedule, and he will come out and speak and give his annual report to us. And I guess something that I think might be a good opportunity at that time is actually present the check at that meeting and get a photo op, get a picture, and get a check, if you guys decide on the amount. MEDICOUNT, we have legislation on the agenda tonight for the contract, warrior contract for EMS building. Paul just had the update, and I don't know, if you want to defer it to the next meeting, that would be fine.
Yeah, these guys don't know what's going on,
Okay.
because they weren't in on the emails.
All right, so we had Diane asked me to send back to MEDICOUNT billing. There are 20 pages of their contract. There's nothing in there that talks about cybersecurity and so forth, who's responsible if something happens to all the HIPAA or the data that we submit to them for billing purposes. So we requested some feedback on that. We just got it right before the meeting. They do have a $3 million liability policy that would cover any employee, anybody that was breached in a security attack through the internet or so forth. They would get a 2-year service agreement to monitor the individual's accounts, to make sure that credit rating and so forth weren't hurt or harmed by that. And that's part of their policy that they cover under theirs. So when we release information to them, they've got coverage that's probably as good, if not better, than the coverage that we have here.
They,
Go ahead, Doc.
yeah, they also sent, can you forward to them the other information, or I can forward it. They have a whole audit report from an independent auditor that had all the audit controls in there, and whether they passed everything, there wasn't anything that failed, but it's a lot of information about how their operations is done, how their IT department is done, their separation of duties, and all types of stuff. So it's really, it was really, you'd be really interested in, I'm sure, being in your line of work,
37
so.
pages or something?
Yeah, it's 37 pages, but it was just done, it was an audit of the entire year last year. Yeah.
Even goes into their generator.
Yeah, the generator,
Generator on film,
yeah, propane generator.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's good to see that that they're taking good care of the data and how they run their business.
And this contract's not due till later on this spring, so I mean, it'd be no harm in tabling this until next meeting.
Yeah.
It's okay. Street lighting districts, I did before it stays like too long, I did a kind of a roundabout and went and checked on all of our street lights, and I submitted, I think 3 or 4. We had one pole that broke at 73 and Old 73, and that pole's been replaced, lights back up. We had a couple in Trillium Run that were out, and so all of them have turned in, and all of them have school board's been completed, and they're done. So,
Don't realize how dark it is up that intersection until that light's going.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, don't realize it.
Oh,
Something hit big, I don't know what it was.
yeah, it broke it off at the ground, so.
I went out there one night, the light was out, so I told Gus the light's out. Went back the next morning, the bulb dead.
Normally, that's something that we look for when we're plowing snow, because we're usually out in the dark, right? No snow, no plowing, so.
So you're saying you need snow?
No. I'm happy to leave that salt right where it's at.
Let it Friday, I don't care.
That was actually something I was gonna talk to Scott about occasionally on those Monday mornings when they all split up and go and run the roads to check to make sure that all signs are up and so forth. That maybe one time that they take off and go in the dark and,
Right.
or send somebody out early and check the subdivision lights, make sure that the street lights are on, and get the numbers that, you know, if there's ones that aren't working. Yeah. We work it out, we get taken care of. National opioid settlements, again, there's 4 other companies that are getting settlements on, and so I got application to file with it. I think I included that in your packet. So we'll go ahead and apply for it, even though it may go directly to the county. And really, I think that's all I have.
All right. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, guys.
All right, old business, Convention of States project, we had a lot of that already. We'll discuss what we want to do with that at some future point. Website update status.
Probably looking at the 1st of March now.
1st of March.
Lauren's helping with the graphics, and she's been,
Lauren. Awesome.
yeah, a little off track.
Yes, tell her thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other old business that we?
I have none. I don't have any.
Okay. Questions or concerns of the bills?
I have none.
I have none, all right. Legislation, 2023-14, we're gonna table that one. That's the MEDICOUNT management that we just discussed. 2023-15 is resolution to certify the 2022 Township Highway System mileage to the Ohio Department of Transportation. And we did sign that, we certified that already, so do I have a
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023-15.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Jacobs, second by Mr. Patrick, to adopt resolution 2023-15. Call roll thereon. Ms. Colvin?
yes?
Mr. Patrick?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
This resolution is hereby adopted the 21st day of February 2023.
All right, thank you. We have no other resolutions?
Computers are old.
I was gonna say, artificial intelligence is taking over.
AI is taking over.
It's voting for us and everything.
Cybersecurity, don't.
All right, do we have correspondence, Daryl?
I have 3 pieces of correspondence. One is from the MEDICOUNT management. It is their 2022 annual report. And from Warren County Health District, their monthly news and information publication. And from McCluskey Chevrolet, they are interested in purchasing Fall's 2019 Tahoe.
Oh.
Twice as much on the table?
That would be good.
All right. Gus, any correspondence?
No, I did not.
Okay. All right, moving on, elected officials' comments.
Have none.
I have none today either.
I have one little brief, a plug for our Waynesville Youth Basketball Association program. This weekend and next weekend will be our year-end Dayton Metro tournament for our teams, 2nd through 6th grade. We have 16 teams that are playing, 136, 138 kids as well. So this is a big step towards year-end season. So we do have the 6th grade Division III girls and the 4th grade Division III boys are playing home, and the rest of us are all away. So yeah, I played at Sinclair Community College with 6th grade girls, and then I also am coaching the 2nd grade boys, and we're playing at Bales Arena. Yeah, so yes, we made it.
Yes.
Year end.
Good job.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah, congratulations to all the kids. It's a long season.
Nice.
And parents.
You said 136?
Right around there, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty good. This is the first year that we've ever had 2 second grade boys teams and 2 second grade girls teams. That's huge for Waynesville, yes.
Get them going early.
Yeah.
All right. We have no work session tonight and no executive session, so I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8 PM.
I second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.